If you feel like you've hit an invisible wall in your IT career, listen closely. You have the certifications, you mastered the console, you built the VPC, you have proven that you can handle the technical weight of any infrastructure. But there is a higher level of impact waiting for you, the leap from being the person who executes the plan to the leader who defines it. In 2026, the elite architects aren't just defined by their technical depth, they are defined by their architectural authority. If you can build a system but you can't define the why to a room full of stakeholders, you aren't an architect yet. Today, I'm breaking down the 6 categories of tool you must master to cross that line. And no, we are not talking about AWS services. We are talking about the frameworks, the modeling languages, the governance tools that give you a seat at the table. And this is the roadmap to the top 1%. In the professional world, communication is your most lethal weapon. I have seen incredibly talented engineers get passed over for promotions simply because they couldn't articulate the business value of their technical choices. An architect's job is to be the bridge. You have to speak mission to the developers and value to the executives. If you can't translate a latency spike into a loss of customer trust, you aren't an architect. The first step to building that bridge is moving away from messy whiteboards and static drawings. You need a way to map the entire enterprise in 3D so that everyone from the developer to the CEO can see the same vision. That is where modeling comes in. Stop just drawing pretty pictures. In a professional environment, if your diagram doesn't have technical intelligence, it's just digital art, not architecture. Most people use Lucidchart or Draw.io. You drag a square, label it server, connect the lines. That's drawing. It's flat. If the business requirements change, you have to manually move 50 boxes and hope you don't miss anything. That's not scalable as well. Pro architects don't draw. They model. The industry standard is Archimate, and the tool you need is Archi. Unlike a drawing, Archimate is a standardized language. It doesn't just show things are connected, it shows how. Is it a data flow, a trigger, or a realization? Think of Archi as a digital twin of your company. Modeling saves you millions before you even touch the console. I have seen multi-million-dollar projects fail because the drawing looked good, but the underlying logic was broken. When you use Archimate, you are defining relationships. You are connecting a business goal, like expanding to a new region, down to a specific application services, and finally to the cloud infrastructure that supports them. When a VP asks, what happens if we move a legacy database to the cloud? You don't guess. You run a query on your model and it tells you exactly which business processes will be impacted. And modeling gives you that 3D view of the business. But a model without rules is just chaos. To be a safe pair of hands for a bank or an enterprise, you need a set of laws that govern your design and ensure you aren't building a house of cards. Building in the cloud without a framework is just gambling with your company's money. In 2026, you need a cheat code to stay ahead. You heard of TOGAF. It's not just boring theory for people in suits. It's about standardization, ensuring everyone in a 5,000-person company speaks the same language. For the cloud, you must master the well-architected framework. It's built on 6 pillars: security, reliability, performance, cost, operations, and sustainability. When an engineer wants to use a cool new tech that doesn't fit, you use a framework to push back. You say, according to the reliability pillar, this design introduces a single point of failure. Suddenly, you aren't just giving an opinion, you are following a global standard. And that is how you win every architectural debate. If you are in an interview and you mention the 6 pillars, you already won half the battle. It shows that you aren't just thinking about the code, you are thinking about the enterprise as a whole. In large-scale financial environments, we don't move a single stone without checking the framework because it prevents you from over-engineering a simple problem or under-engineering a critical one. Frameworks provide the architecture development method, which is a step-by-step cycle for transforming vision to a reality. Mastery of these frameworks give you the authority to say no to bad ideas and say yes to the strategic ones. Once these rules are set, You have to turn that paper architecture into a living, breathing, automated reality. You have to move away from ClickOps and toward a world where your infrastructure is repeatable as a line of code. Clicking buttons in the AWS console is for hobbyists. Professionals write code that builds the entire world for them while they sleep. We call it ClickOps. It's the fastest way to stay stuck in a junior role. If I ask you to replicate your environment in a different region and it takes you 4 hours of clicking, you've failed the test already. This is the world of Terraform. But the crawl phase is just writing scripts. The run phase is security as a code. Use tools like Chekhov or Terrascan to scan your code before it even deploys. If your code tries to launch an unencrypted database, the pipeline kills the build automatically. When your infrastructure is reusable, self-scanning library, you aren't just an engineer, you are a force multiplier. You build the golden blueprint that the whole company can use safely. Terraform is a power tool. If you don't know what you're doing, you can delete the whole data center in just 5 seconds. That is why we focus on modularization. In my experience, top tier architects build a library of approved components. When a developer needs a new network, they don't build it from the scratch. They import your gold standard version. You move from being the person who does the work to the person who defines how work is done. Imagine being able to deploy a fully compliant banking environment with a single command. The system is now built, but how do you know if it is actually healthy? You need to see the soul of the transaction, not just the green lights on a static dashboard. You need true observability. You can't manage what you can't see. In 2026, a green light dashboard isn't enough to stay safe. Engineers see 90% CPU. Architects see a 2-second lag, killing checkout conversions. That's the power of observability. Stop looking at memory metrics and start building executive dashboards. A VP doesn't care about hardware. They care about the cost per user or transactions per second, TPS. When you translate technical health into a business health, you are finally speaking the language of the C-suite. We use tools like Grafana Stack to see the system soul. Don't wait for the phone to ring. Use traces like AWS X-Ray to find the needle in the haystack before the customer ever complains. This shifts from reacting to crisis to predicting them. Master the 3 pillars: logs, metrics, and traces. If you can't prove the system is working, it isn't. Speak business, not just bytes. Monitoring the pulse is one thing, but there is another heartbeat you need to watch, the one that keeps the CFO awake at night. In the cloud, every byte has a price tag, and an architect must be the guardian of that budget. Every cloud engineer is an expense until they prove they can manage the budget. In the cloud, every second is a meter running. This is FinOps. To reach the VP level, be the guardian of the bank. Use InfraCost to see the bill before you deploy. Implement Cloud Custodian as your digital police force. If a resource is non-compliant, shut it down immediately. When you scale traffic by 10x but cut the bill by 20%, you become bulletproof. It's not just about cutting cost, it's about optimization, knowing when to use spot instances versus reserved instances. I have seen $1 million bills slashed in half by changing simple data lifecycle policies. When you save the company $500,000 with 3 lines of code, the promotion comes to you. Treat the company's money like your own. When you speak the language of profit, the C-suite listens. Building, watching, and saving money is 90% of the job. But there is one tool that protects the most valuable asset you have: your professional reputation and your legacy of logic. That is where decision records come in. Most important tool an architect has isn't a cloud console, it's a decision log. In 6 months, nobody remembers why you choose that specific database. If you say, I don't remember, you lose your authority instantly. We call these architectural decision records or ADRs. Use tools like Log4Brains to capture the context, the decision, and the consequences. Architecture is always about some trade offs. There is no perfect system, only the right one for the right now. ADRs are your get out of jail free card. When a VP questions a choice, show them the record. Maybe the cheaper option lacked residency features required by SAMA or CBUAE. You have just turned an argument into a professional discussion on regulatory risk. It proves you aren't just guessing, you are making intentional decisions. If you aren't documenting your logic, you aren't architecting, you're just improvising. That is how you lead with transparency. These tools are the mechanics of the role, but to really cross that invisible wall and take your seat at the strategy table, you need a final shift in perspective, moving from building software to building business outcomes. Here's the final truth: tools change, but principles are permanent. You can learn Terraform or Datadog in a weekend, but communicating a complex system to a stakeholder, that takes a lifetime of practice. We have covered modeling, frameworks, automation, FinOps, observability, and ADRs. This is the 2026 toolkit. But remember, tools don't make the architect, the mindset does. Stop thinking about how to build and start thinking about how to solve. The cloud market is crowded at the bottom, but empty at the top. The difference is how you use your tools. So, which category is your biggest weakness? Be honest in the comment. Architecture is a journey, it's not a destination. If you're ready to cross that invisible wall, start thinking like an owner. Take responsibility for the entire system, not just a piece of it. I'm Gokul, and I'll see you in the next one.